Randy Sullivan. Randy, I reached out to Randy about 3 years ago. Well, first of all, Randy and I've had many rabbit holes. It's funny, I say late night here, which is, of course, even in the middle of the night by Randy. Um, but I hit a wall, for, like, the last time with a pitcher going through rehab program and, having, dreadful results, from following much of the programs that have been around for 50 years. Nothing against they're doing their best, but these programs essentially came out of a 50-year-old model. So I reached out to Randy and I said, "Randy, I can't take it anymore. Will you join forces?" And he did not hesitate. Took him less than, I don't know if I finished my sentence. Um, so Randy and I wrote a return to throwing manual. We just updated it. It actually went live on Tuesday. So if you go to our, I don't know, it's not on Randy's site yet, but it will be. But if you go to jagersports.com, front and center, it'll say return to throwing 2.0 and it's free. Um, and it's 60 pages, unlike the throwing programs out there, usually between 2 and 4. We're not trying to win with more pages. Um, so what I wanna do is, I wanna first put the focus on Randy and sort of Randy's take on all of this as well, and then, we're gonna make room again for questions. There's a lot to dive into about return to throwing because, unless you've had someone that has had to go through it, it might be relatively new to you, but we definitely wanna, bring a lot of awareness to the importance in case it may not be you or your son or someone in your with your team, but it might be your neighbor's son, or daughter. So Randy, let's do this. First of all, let me do an official intro. For those of you that don't know, Randy is the founder of Florida Baseball Armory. Randy, I started making a note. Put down 9. I think it's more than that. How many books have you written now?
Well, this is number 11. I just finished it. I'm doing the citation audit right now. So yeah,
Okay, so Randy's only at book number 11.
that's it. Yeah, that's it.
And what I love about Randy is he's a PT by trade, but he really has taken the biomechanics and the feel, and he's heavy on merging that feel piece, and that's another reason we get along so well. Randy, what I'd like to do is first of all just start off with anything, but really, I guess you're passionate about this project about rehab and the return to throw, and why don't you go ahead and why don't you kick us off?
But yeah, I've been doing this a long time, about 30 years as a physical therapist and about 20 coaching baseball players. And our whole thing kind of evolved from uh, an outreach of our physical therapy practice. We were rehabbing guys, and then we were sending them back out with the same old return to throwing protocol that was recopied so many times that it was like crooked and faded, and you could barely see it. Look like, And then I realized that this original plan was written it when it was still okay to smoke cigarettes in the dugout, and I thought we need to maybe take a look at modifying this, updating this, right? So um, we we would send guys out, and then they would come back hurt again. And I realized we haven't really done anything. We haven't let them reorganize the way they throw. So when we started digging into this return to throw program, it became pretty clear that it was really just robotic and templated, and the only measure for advancement was time. And everybody progresses through differently, as you know. So um, I think what you've done. I mean, let's all be fair. Alan did the yeoman's work on this. I was there, offering advice, but he actually put the pen to paper and wrote the thing, put his hands on the keyboard. I just edited it for him, I'm really happy with what came out of it because it's super holistic. It doesn't just involve the throwing program. We have parts from Nunzio in there about strength, and from other experts, Nolan Rappe, about arm care and things like that. There's lots of experts that kind of chimed in to help. So it was a collaborative effort that probably the only guy in the baseball world that could pull it off would be Allen because of his relationships and the way he's just been so authentic with people throughout his life and his career, and how many people he's touched to kind of rally up that kind of support for it. It's been great. We've actually had several players go through it from sim to stern now, and it's incredible because it allows this sort of self-organization, auto-regulation component that is missing. And I think that was really important to provide clarity. The old protocols were just really unclear. Like, what is the throw? How much is, what is perceived effort? How much is perceived effort? How hard should I throw? We have a really cool velocity based distance kind of measure, effort, perceived effort measure from Ben Brewster there in that. And I think that it provides a lot more clarity about what to do each day while also allowing the freedom to explore. And then the final thing that I think it really does a nice job of is, I learned from Dr. Marcus Elliott at P3 a long time ago that the number one predictor of injury is the delta, that is the change, what changed. And I don't think the old protocol was managing the deltas, the shift between phases. For example, Alan talks about it all the time. It would go from 120 straight to the mound. You get out to 120, now you're on the mound. And what we've done is kind of gradually feather in those mound transitions, those transitions to the next phase. Sort of like feathering in the concrete of a sidewalk right up to your front door so that it's not such an abrupt change, which is much more well tolerated by the client and the player. So I think Alan has done a remarkable job of just really deeply thinking into, how do we take a person from, okay, I'm injured, they're going to do surgery on me, to getting back to where we were, not just getting back to where we were before, but coming out of it even better than we were before we started. And I'm really proud of it. Proud to be associated with it and such a great guy. So kudos to you, Alan. Way to go.
Well, thanks, Randy. Well, I think you're underselling yourself quite a bit because what you're saying a lot of nice things about me, but the truth of it is that I had a lot of questions. I needed Randy's insight from historically from the PT side, the anatomical side, and so it really was a team effort. And I assure you this: I've been, coaching, teaching the throwing side for 35 years, and Randy's pretty close to that as well. And I feel like what we really did, and the reason we're both excited about this, is that we kind of broke free from what's been in place from 50 years ago, essentially. And we not only modernized it, but we also made it individually based, which I don't know many things in life you wouldn't want to go. We just heard Steve talking about motor learning, right? Um, and I'll add one other piece, and then I think again we just really want to get more to Q&A. Believe me, we can spew on and on about our manual, what makes it unique, what makes it different. But I again want to open this up to Q&A, and we'll fill in blanks if need be. One other thing that the reason why it's 2.0 is this manual came out about a year ago, and I had an epiphany about 2 months ago based on a conversation with a player that I'm working with going through rehab. And the epiphany was basically, why are we fitting in these 3 days out of 7 week 1 or 4 days out of 7 week 2? Like, we've come up, I've learned this because of Randy, the Gregorian calendar is basically just something that was made up because of the amount of days it takes for the Earth to go around the sun, which is 365 and a quarter, which is why we have a leap year every 4 years. And it hit me. Everything based around training and development is a continuum, right? You're adding, subtracting. You're putting more tolerance to the load, less, more. Right now, I'm talking probably in Nunzio's talk, and it hit me. We don't want to fit days into 7 days. It's very awkward. Maybe 20 weeks down the road when they're ready to start getting on a 7, 6, or 5 day cycle, we can start to get normalized into that cycle. And so what we decided to do, which I just think is a game changer, is we actually start out from day one. We just go, instead of 3 days a week or 4 days a week, we just go out, we go every other day for 4 weeks. So there's a rhythm. And then week 5, which is earlier than most of the standardized protocols, we then go to 2 days on, 1 day off. So we're ignoring 7 days a week. And again, it's keeping us, excuse me, in this unbelievable rhythm. And we're also at such short distances that we just steal Randy's line I use all the time. I just used it in the podcast the other day, is the body is made to move. So instead of this stagnant time or this disproportionate time off or on, we have this nice rhythm to where we go every day to then we go to 2 days on, 1 day off, week 5. And then week 9, where again, we're still not to 120 yet, so the load is still minimal as far as distance-wise. And then we go to 3 days on, 1 day off, and the middle day of those 3 days is a deload. But the point is that, the players are by week 9, they're throwing 6 out of 8 days. And this is our sweet spot. When I say sweet, Randy and I mean, our sweet spot is training and developing arms, and we just know how vital that is for a healthy arm, let alone a rehab arm, that consistency, that continuity. So, and then the last point I'd make is to Randy's point is then when we get to the 120 number, where all the main top return to throwing protocols that we've looked at, essentially, there might be one that goes to 180, but they essentially go from 120 to the mound, which to us doesn't make any sense if the player was going 300 feet pre-surgery. We can start talking about motor preferences too there. And so we built our program out to 300 feet action plus. But theoretically, you can jump off at 180, 240, whatever, based on your age, your weight, your arm strength, your preference. So it's not like you have to go to 300 feet. We've just built it out. So our program theoretically goes a little longer than the normal ones just because we've allotted more time to build out the return, the rehab, sorry, the distance part. And then the distance part then leads to, from our point of view, a much more ideal time to start then incorporating more of the higher intent throws. So the higher intent throws for us don't happen until these athletes have really fully stretched their arms out. So, and then Randy mentioned other things, between Nunzio's input and Nolan Rapay. We use a chart from Ben Brewster based on perceived intensity. We have videos on what we call massage throwing. So we talk a lot about, from day one, we don't want robotic tight throwing because you've been in a clinic for 5 months or 4 months. We talk a lot about, I'm going to steal Randy's thunder. We talk a lot about variability right away. We talk about, adaptation, proprioception, feel, relaxation, athleticism. And so again, our manual that's why 60 pages long. It's an education. It's not, as Randy said, something that's been printed out 17 different times. That's now at different angles, and you can barely read the print. So that's sort of an overview about our return to throw. It is specifically for TJ, a full TJ. I would assume if you had a shoulder reconstruction, it would fall pretty much into the similar timeline. Randy is working on a return to throw. It's more based on a brace. And so obviously, and then again, the manual is written to where it's educational, to where maybe you didn't have any surgery. You had 6 weeks off because your PT told you to take 6 weeks off and do some light, movement. The manual is written in a way where you could still read our manual and have a pretty good idea of how to adapt, even in that case. But just want to make sure up front that you're clear that this has been written in mind for a full Tommy John reconstruction, return to throw. So with that said, Randy, I don't know if you want to chime in on anything else, and then we'll open up to Q&A. Randy, did you want to follow up with anything from that?
Yeah, we're working on the internal bracing protocol. As soon as we publish this one, we already have the template for it written. It's just a matter of compressing it because it's a shorter time frame. And then also the next thing to come is going to be a non-surgical, just typical 8-week when you just have no surgical intervention, gradual return to throwing protocol as well, based on the same principles. The foundation is the same. It's just the time frames just get compressed a little bit. That's all.
Awesome. All right, so let's open it up for Q&A about all things rehab, return to throw, and we'll, as usual, you can throw it in the chat room, or if you have a question, you can raise your hand. Oh, thank you. No, Tamara threw our return to throw 2.0 in the chat room, so there's the link if anybody's interested.
I think that in reality, we could probably move quicker on the return to throw. I think that the 4 months of no throwing at all, not even a throwing like maneuver, um, adds to some issues downstream. Um, In ACL reconstruction rehab, we went through the same thing where we had these really long, super conservative protocols. And they actually did a study where they just interviewed people and said, "Were you compliant with the protocol?" And the ones that were honest and said that they weren't compliant, that they kind of pushed themselves a little further than the protocol, they actually got better results than the people that followed the traditional long-term protocol. This is back in the 80s and 90s. And that's where they just revamped ACL reconstruction to take it down from long, long periods down to like 9 to 12 months. And they're going even faster than that in some professional arenas now. The issue we have is twofold. Number one, uh, we're dealing with humans, people's lives, and so we could try to squeeze it a little more and make it happen a little faster, but no one wants to be the first guy through the door. No, I mean, it's a human you're dealing with. You can't really experiment with that, right? And so you just kind of stick with what we've done because it's worked to some degree, right? Um, but the other part is this ligamentization of the ligament of the tendon. So they take a graft, they take a tendon from a hamstring or the palmaris longus, and they cut it out and they strip it and they turn this tendon into a ligament. And they do the same thing in the ACL with the patellar tendon. And there's a period where that tendon miraculously morphs into a ligament. It starts changing its elasticity and the actual matrix of the fibers change to where it's ligament. And there's a vulnerable period in ACL recovery where we can't really do a whole lot of open chain knee extension because it'll stretch the ligament. And so I asked Dr. Coco Eaton, the Rays doctor, I go, we kind of know the window where the patellar tendon ligamentizes in the ACL reconstruction surgery. I go, when does the UCL, the tendon ligamentize? And he said, we don't know. I said, what do you mean we don't know? He said, well, all the studies they did to determine when a tendon turns to a ligament were done on dogs, and dogs don't have UCLs. So
Mhm.
we don't know. So we just kind of guesses when that might happen. So there's a lot of question marks about that, but I wouldn't be surprised if in the future some surgeons started going to, I wouldn't say more aggressive, but more progressive protocols where we start moving them a little earlier. I've always been concerned about that 4 months without throwing it all, about the scar tissue adhesions that occur during that time. I wish we could do a little more in that before they actually start a return to throwing protocol to kind of accelerate or at least, optimize that a little better. We do some things in our practice to kind of minimize that negative, the negative aspect effects of that long term. Just don't throw anything that seems like a baseball throw at all.
Randy, thank you, man. That was a really cool ad. We have a fascinating question. Hey, I love this question. You're it's like you're prepping for the next mental skills pound. Do you include aspects of the mental side of rehab? I'll say this, and then Randy can talk from more experience in his clinic. But we do talk about early on. Um, I'm trying to think the word I use. It's called open space. So in meditation, you have what's called narrow focus and open focus. And so the idea we do talk early on in the manual about the importance of being in open focus, to being in space. First of all, the players have physically, literally been in four walls for maybe 4 months. And to Randy's point, maybe it shouldn't be 4 months. Yeah, but so they're in a kind of a box. I call it kind of left brain linear world, and we're trying to get them freed up and athletic in the right brain open world. Um, so to your question, Aid, we do talk about it to a degree, but I would say that as part of the consulting side, and I'll let Randy chime in here as well. Um, the keyword that comes back to what Jay Johnson just pounded, which is what we pound. It's a process. I use an analogy, or I have a saying I actually love. I know that sounds funny. I love this saying. It came from the universe. I can't take credit for it. I just love the saying, which is eliminate the calendar when you're going through rehab. These kids, if they're getting ready for, if they're this many weeks away from spring training, this many weeks away from their season starting, this many weeks away from salvaging the second half of the season, there's always going to be something they're going to try to get back for. Yes, you do get players that fall into a sweet spot where nothing's happening on their timeline, and that's very relaxing. And so what I do, and again, Randy will chime in on how he uses this, but I pound them on their process. I say, look, forget the calendar, forget spring training, forget the season starts in March, forget summer ball, forget a showcase in October. It's all irrelevant. It's a moot point. I only want to know about now, today. Did you get better today in your process? Did you progress the right way today? And then we'll figure out tomorrow. And so, A, to your great question is when it comes to rehab, like probably just about everything else in life, is I do everything in my power to eliminate the future, eliminate the calendar, and stay with the process because athletes will tend to want to get back. We all know that feeling. We've all been there. We want to come. I played tennis when I hurt my calf. It crushed me to not get back out there, and I want to get out there sooner than I could. And as we all know, that's how you re-injure yourself really quickly. And so that's one other angle I'd add to it too. Is I don't want to ever scare people or guilt them, but I do give them reality. Like, look, if you do this if you do this if you kinda do this well and then rush at the end, this may cost you another 6 months. It may cost you your career, because once you hurt something and then you re-tear it again, boy, now we're in some brutal territory. Randy, what do you wanna add to that?
Yeah, I think that the one of the challenges of rehab is just the boredom and the isolation, right? You're over here in a special little part, and so we don't call them our rehab group, we call them our resurgent group. We're trying to get them back better than they were before. I think the mindset there is that we're over here prepping to come back stronger, better than ever. Okay. Um, I think the monotony of every day I gotta go out and run my process, it just keeps getting, and that's where the use of variability comes in handy because you don't just get mentally bored, your body gets bored with stimuli. If you do the same drills and exercises every day for a year, your body's gonna accommodate to the stimulus. Like when you get in a cold tub and it's no longer cold anymore because you got used to it. One of the key components of any training process is keeping the body guessing. You have to perturb the system constantly so that it doesn't accommodate to the stimulus, which means you have to have a whole vault full of different ways to get to the same outcome, but change the stimulus slightly to get there. That's just a foundational principle of our training. And now, so what we try to do is we try to get our guys involved in everything that they can do. Okay. I learned this from my old friend Ron Wolford back about 15, 20 years ago. Never let what you can't do keep you from doing what you can. And so there's a lot of stuff we can do, even not allowed to throw, that'll prep us to our bodies to be ready to throw. Nunzio gave us a great strength training program to put into the protocol. Okay. Um, we have our guys do everything they can to mimic the throw without throwing. In our process, we call it savage training. We've learned to zoom out from the details of mechanics when we look at the delivery or the throwing motion, and instead lock on these universal movement principles that are common to every movement in sport. And in our process, the ecological dynamics approach, they're called attractors. People get confused by that, so we think of them as the big rocks and not the pebbles. The big rocks are the same in football, basketball, tennis, rugby, soccer, hockey. They're the foundational principles of athleticism because they're built on the basis of anatomy and agility. Okay. Now, when we find these 9 attractors that we have to use, I added one last month, 2 months ago. Um, we can lock in on those. And what's really cool about that is things like a co-contracted hip hinge or rotating around the hinge or closing the front of your pelvis or operating a proximal to distal manner or getting your chest out when you rotate or establishing a hip block. Okay. Easily remembered with the rap song that I wrote called the attractor rap: hinge it, lock it, close it, pop it, get the shoulder in the socket. Okay. When you do that, when you do those 5 things, now you can work on those things. And for the first time ever, we can get better at throwing a baseball without having to throw a baseball. We can build the foundations. We actually tested with it was the Modus sleeve back then. It's Pulse now, but we tested our training sock with all the different size balls. The training sock we invented that they sell at Oat Specialties, and we threw every size ball, weighted ball in it as hard as we could. We had like 100 guys do it, and when we hit the 7-ounce ball, and this kind of aligns with Flight 6 research on which weighted ball produces the least amount of stress. When we hit the 7-ounce ball in the training sock, the Modus sleeve gave us about a little less than half the stress of a normal throw. Okay, somewhere between maybe 40 and 60% of a normal throw. So that was a way to throw without torquing the elbow. And then we tested our little aqua ball, our fake throws when we hold the ball with two hands. And if the regular throw was 70 Newton meters of torque on a baseball, and the sock was 35 to 50 Newton meters of torque on a baseball, on a 7-ounce ball, the aqua ball fake throw where you're working on hinge, lock it, close, and pop it, that gave us 3 Newton meters of torque. It was like not even throwing because you're controlling the degrees of freedom with the other hand. Okay. And so we let our guys do all kinds of stuff like that to get them ready and keep convincing them that they're building these blocks. They're going to come out better because they're building the building blocks that they didn't have before, the foundational principles. And then, I'm a physical therapist and we have our rehab clients in there. And I'm certified in scraping and cupping and every soft tissue modality there is. And I would much rather use the athlete's own movement to self-organize their body than me on the outside scraping it or cupping it. Okay. Um, if I have to, I will. If it's a gnarly, gnarly scar, I'll do it. But I'm not sure that scraping it and disorganizing it, if not coupled with movement that self-organizes it, does us a whole lot of good. Okay. I think if you're gonna release adhesions, you better reorganize them pretty quickly. Okay. Um, I'm certified in cupping, and I can't understand how getting blood to the surface of the skin helps. I need blood flowing through the system. So I think movement is much more appropriate. If guys say, hey, those things make me feel really good, then cool, we'll do it. It's cool. It makes you feel good. But I do them on our rehab guys. But mostly, you know why I do it? Because it gives me about 10 minutes to sit over there with them with nobody else. Everything else is going crazy all over the building.
So they
And I get 10.
get this.
I'm sorry.
No, someone has their mic off.
Okay. I'm about 10 minutes. I spend about 10 minutes with them and I'm scraping their arm. I'm not even sure if it's doing any good. Okay. But we're talking through the process. Like you said, Alan, just talking through, hey man, counters are irrelevant. We don't care about the time. You're getting better. Look at how good you're doing on your hip block, man. It's getting to be crazy how good you're going to be when you come back, changing their mindset and just sort of becoming their therapist, not from the physical side, but let's just build this relationship and convince these guys that they're going to be okay and kind of make them feel like they're a part of the process even more. So, I think it's a critical part. I think people get lost in the mundane nature of it. And if you don't mix it up and let them do things that they can do, because they all just want to be athletes and they want to sit in a PT room and do throwers tens and, you know, 1 pound weights to wait till they're ready to go.
Awesome, Randy. I love that. You said that before, Ron's line. Never let what you can't do limit what you can do. Is that it?
Never let it keep you from doing what you can do. Yeah.
Never let what you can't do keep you from what you can do, right?
Right. Right.
And then when you get a chance, if you can go into the chat room, we got 2 requests for your rap, the socket
Yeah.
rap. Jonathan
Yep.
Forster, I'm gonna read your question. Coaching a 12U team and still on small field, getting ready for big field. I know it is based on several circumstances, but what distance could I realistically expect for long toss any throwing program I return to throwing from inactive throwing? Well, first of all, if they're in inactive throwing, John, I think what you mean is eventually how far out will they go? It'll take them a while to build up, but as you know, it's going to be tricky because it's based on individuality. You may have a 12-year-old with a really strong arm and a 12-year-old with not a very strong arm. So I think the answer is going to be pretty straightforward. That it just really depends on the athlete. I think the most important thing is is that whatever distance it is that it's organic and it's allowed to unfold as opposed to what Randy and I have been talking a lot about, which is these predetermined programs with predetermined distances. I think that's really the answer. Randy, if you want to, you have any
Yeah.
thoughts?
I think
Yep. Yep.
the first thing that jumps out to me is why are they on an inactive throwing? If they're coming off of an injury and that's why they are, that's a different story than this infernal mandatory shutdown that everybody demands. I think that in our process, we never stop throwing completely. We're always moving the arm, whether it's low intensity throwing, massage throwing, throwing in the training sock, anything like that, what we call, I think I stole this term from you, an incubation period, where we're just kind of chilling, but not really stopping. Um, in our process, we don't ever want to be more than 3 weeks away from being ready to ramp up and throw. We want to be close, humming along under. You don't have to throw hard all the time, but we kind of hum along under the surface all winter long, and then it's a rolling start to the ramp up. It's not a dead stop. Okay, those two things are completely different. If it's a dead stop for a long period of time, we got to go nice and slow. But if we've been kind of incubating, we can get a rolling start and we can go a lot faster. I think the other thing that jumps out at me, the question is the 12U age. That's a pretty interesting age because what we shouldn't be looking at is the chronological age, but the physiologic age. There are some 12-year-olds that look like they're 8, and there are some 12-year-olds that look like they could drive the school bus and, you know, go on dates with the moms. Uh, and that's a challenge, right? So those other guys are waiting for Mr. T, waiting for Mr. Testosterone to show up. Um, and in the adolescent range, in the pre-adolescent range, we got growth plate issues, and growth plate issues are the most finicky and unpredictable that I've ever encountered. I can't understand the link between who gets hurt and who doesn't. It's just these little bone factories are raging, and sometimes the confluence of forces come together, and you can't explain why their shoulder hurt or why their elbow hurt, and parents beat themselves up. Hey, it wasn't overuse, it wasn't this, it wasn't that. Growth plates are a different story, and that's the one time where you absolutely, when you have a growth plate issue, you have to respect it. You can't reorganize it. You have to wait until it's ready for you to accept more load, and so that's when you absolutely do shut down. So with a 12U team, I would make it individual. I would let them feel their way through it. Of course, the hard part is when you ask a 12-year-old what they feel, they go, "Huh?" They don't know what they feel. They haven't had enough experience in life to know, but I think they're intuitive enough to go, "Okay, I can do this a little bit further." We just have to keep an eye on them and basically use some just reasonable judgment as to how far we think they should go and how much we think they should throw. And like you said, it's going to be individual for a lot of different reasons that we've already discussed. So
Yeah. It's tricky, Jonathan. There's that age, as Randy said. Yeah, I mean, we've all dealt with kids at that age, and they could be quite different. Let's see. We've got a few more minutes. Do we have anybody? Sheets just chimed in. What's up, brother? Um, you got anything else on rehab? Or I'll tell you, we'll throw it open to as well. Since this is really supposed to be Randy's session more than anything, do you have any, if you have any other general questions about PT or anything that along those lines, feel free.
yeah, if I could jump in, the thing that I'm nerding out a lot on lately, we have this new incredible lab that we have with Newt Force Melon, motion capture, and TrackMan all linked together. We have one, and the University of Georgia has two, and Newt Force has one, and it's been incredible. All the data that we've been able to collect over the summer and seeing some patterns emerge. And, these attractors that I just talked about, I'll repeat the rap song. Okay. It's called the Attractor Rap. It's original by Randy Sullivan, the rapper. Hinge it, lock it, close it, pop it, get the shoulder in the socket. Rotate around a stable hinge, get a hip lock to lock the back door, close the front of the pelvis. At the same time, get your chest out, not your lower back, and get your shoulder in the socket on time when your foot hits the ground. There are 9 attractors. Those are the 5. Everything else is kind of an abstract derivative of those. Now, I wrote about it in my last book. Franz Bosch wrote about it in his book called Anatomy of Agility. My last one, Integrated Anatomy of Pitching, I wrote about it and took Franz's attractors that he identified and then put them into pitching. And they were all based on anatomical and physiological science, all really well grounded in research, but nonetheless, admittedly theoretical because the abstract nature of an attractor is that you can't measure it directly. It's an abstract condition, not a position. It's not an angle or a joint that you can measure. It's a condition such as in the back hip, the hinge is an internal condition called isometric co-contraction, which means the muscles on, all the muscles around the hip are on, and in a simultaneous co-contraction, the agonist and antagonist working together to stabilize the joint. It's the condition that can't be directly measured, but with our new lab, what we're seeing that we can take a combination of data points. We can take ground force measurements, motion capture measurements, and then link them to ball flight outcomes. And it's never one data point that gives us the answer, but we can find this cocktail of multi-platform data points that can point to whether your hinge, your lock, your close is stable or unstable. And so that's what I'm writing about in my new book. And we've collected so much data over the summer that it's the first time ever that we can actually show evidence of attractor stability in any movement science at all. It's the first time anybody can ever show it. And so it's exciting. The hard part is that when I write about it, since no one's ever talked about it, I can't really resource it very well. I can kind of base it on ecological dynamics research and anatomy and movement science, but um, a lot of but what it's doing is we're putting the bio back in biomechanics. Um, one of the limiting factors in all biomechanical research is that it assumes that we are made of metal and rivets and we're held together like that, and that we adhere to the laws of Newtonian physics without deviation. And unfortunately, we're not made of metal. Okay, um, it's the body has this incredible way of self-organizing in dynamic situations, and so this while that seems complex, we've been able to kind of trim it down to these, universal attractors, which gives us simplicity. And now we can actually, for the first time, measure attractor stability, at least through a cocktail of different platforms giving us data points. And our next step is now we're writing the code to make that a sort of a player and coach directed formula that then takes all the data points and gives us reports to say, is this attractor stable or unstable and why? And then now we can get them off the mound. Like, let's say a pitcher has a bad outing. We'll be able to then uh, look at all the data and find out what it tells us, what was going on, and then drill down to which attractors were unstable. And over the next 3 days, hammer them in the gym, in the training room floor, and then get them back out for a better performance next time. And so it's going to give us a quicker turnaround, a quicker resolution to uh, moving inefficiencies that are resulting in performance outcomes that aren't what we ideally look for. So we're really excited about it. It's what we're going to be talking about at our Skill Acquisition Summit in January. That's January 24th and 25th, right here at the Army in Lakeland, Florida. You can learn all about that at floridabaseballarmy.com/summit. We have some incredible speakers this year. We have myself, Franz will be here again, but via satellite. He doesn't travel much anymore. Rob Gray will be here. Everybody knows Rob. The Dutch guys, Bart Heinegraaf, Martijn Nijhoff, and we've added Dylan Lawson, former New York Yankees and now Boston Red Sox hitting coach. Ethan Goforth is the catching coordinator for the minor league catching coordinator for the Cardinals. He's going to be talking about this process in catching. Vaughn Robinson, performance director for the Arizona Diamondbacks, is going to be there. And also my dear friend and one of the most enthusiastic guys, and just about the only guy I can currently collaborate with on this kind of stuff, Wes Johnson, University of Georgia head coach. He's going to come and talk to us about how they found the same kind of things in the lab and all we've been able to collaborate with. And so the theme is it's how movement creates data. It's connect the tech, right? All this technology that we have in the world today. My business partner, Andy Marsh, has been such a great steward of our finances. We've been able to reinvest in this technology that really helps us improve the quality of our training for our players. But all the tech in the world isn't worth anything if we can't connect it to movement and then actionable training that results in immediate performance changes. And I'm excited because this is the first time as close as we've ever come to being able to do this. We have to connect the tech, and that means connect it to movement and connect it to training. That makes the difference. And that's what the theme of the summit is about. All these experts are going to be there with that common theme, talking our way through how we're going to make that happen. So we're really excited about it. So if you're interested, floridabaseballarmy.com/summit, and you can look at any of the books I've written at floridabaseballarmy.com/books. They're pretty simple websites to go to. Okay. So I'm excited about that, but thanks for the opportunity to share that. I appreciate that.
Yeah, Randy, thank you. And again, I put it in the chat, floridabaseballarmy.com. I have been in this game 35 years, and I've leaned on Randy a lot for a lot of things. And I cannot express enough, if you get a chance, to just get on his site and browse around and check out his books and also his summit. How many years you been doing the summit now, Randy?
I think this is the 7th or 8th. We had one that got knocked out by COVID, and then we got it moved back because of 2 hurricanes last year, but we like this January slot, like, it seemed like a really good time period for people to get here. October was kinda weird for some people, so, it was sort of, uh, serendipitous. The hurricane, shut us down for a couple weeks last year, 2 of them in a row, and then, we moved it to January, and it really was well received in January, so I think this is the 7th one. The 8th was during COVID. I think we shut it down for that. So
Well, like I said, please track Randy down. You won't be sorry. And Randy, I look forward to chatting with you really soon. And thanks for making time for us today.
you bet, man. You bet. This was great. And Alan, I appreciate you guys. I'm telling you, this return to throwing protocol is the real deal. And no one on the planet could have pulled it together except our friend Alan. And you guys all know if you're on this call, you know what a jewel of a person he is and the relationships that he's made over the years just because of his authenticity. Um, I've never heard, it's a small baseball community, right? Everybody knows everybody. And there are a lot of people that I don't know, and if the people I don't know, if everyone I know says they're a really good guy, when I meet them, they really are. And Alan's just one of those guys that everybody just tells you what a good guy is. Now, the opposite is true too. If everybody I know says you're not a good guy, and I meet you, I'll probably give you a shot. But sometimes, sometimes, anyway, it's a small community. Is what I'm saying. Um, and Alan has just been so great to so many people that he's built all those relationships there. How many people are in the coalition, Alan, of people that have signed on to go through this
Uh,
protocol?
We're at about 130 and growing. We've got, I think, a bunch
Dude,
more coming.
I don't have 130 acquaintances, let alone friends. And these are all your friends. So that's pretty amazing. So
Pretty cool.
kudos to you. Kudos.
Yeah,
There you go.
brother. I'll make sure I send you a certified check later on for all the compliments. Thanks, Randy.